Hi freedivers! Today's topic is equalization in freediving. Let's have a look about the program. First, equalization definition. Second, main airspace involved in the equalization and connection of this airspace. Third, air shift technique, reverse packing and abdominal contraction. Fourth, equalization techniques, and mainly we will talk about Frenzel. We're going to have a learning protocol. First, the theory. The theory, from my point of view, is the most important part. Thanks to the theory, we can understand what's happened to our body while descending. There are changements about physiology and physics to our body. After that, we will have the dry exercise. Thanks to the dry exercise, we will develop the awareness of the organs involved in the equalization. Exercise in the pool is going to be possible to shift the dry exercise in a different environment, in the water, where we will perform skills upside down. And then finally, we go in the sea to put in practice what we understood thanks to the theory, what we learned with the dry exercise and with the exercise in the pool. Definition: air clearing or equalization is any of the various maneuvers to equalize the pressure in the middle ear with the outside pressure by letting air enter along the Eustachian tube. With this definition, so we're just talking about how to open the tubes to let the air go in. In diving, we have only the equalization techniques. We can have Valsalva, we can have Toynbee, Frenzel, hands-free, etc. Instead, in freediving, it's a little bit different. In freediving, we have two different moments, air shift techniques and equalization techniques. To be able to use the air that is in the oral cavity to open the tubes, we must first move some air from the lungs to the oral cavity. That's what we will call air shift techniques. Then, after that we shift the air, we can use one of the different equalization. So, analyzing this table, we have air shift techniques, abdominal contraction and reverse packing. Equalization techniques, Frenzel, advanced Frenzel, sequential Frenzel, hands-free and mouse wheel. And these two, air shift technique and equalization technique, they can be combined with each other, providing different results on that. Frenzel definition is the equalization technique where first we air shift between tongue and palate with reverse packing or abdominal contraction, and then we equalize. Air shift, equalize, air shift, equalize, and keep going until it will be possible to air shift. This technique fails in the moment that the air shift technique doesn't work anymore. We will see later that the reverse packing is one of the air shift techniques that is working deeper. The abdominal contraction is working shallower, usually fail between 25 and 35 meters. Let's start talking about the main airspace and connection. The main airspace are divided in deformable, partially deformable and undeformable. Lungs is a partially deformable volume. Why partially? Because the first part of the bronchi and the bronchial, they are not able to change volume because they are hard structure. Instead, the alveoli, they can get smaller and bigger while we are ascending and descending. Oral cavity is a partially deformable volume. Why partially? Because we have the back of the throat that cannot change volume, is a dead space. But example, I can store air between the tongue and the hard palate, or I can fill my cheek. So the volume can increase and decrease depending from the situation. Nasal cavity is undeformable volume. And what's changed comparing to the other volumes? That is mandatory to constant equalize these volumes because this volume cannot change as volume. and cannot decrease and increase. Middle ear is a partially deformable volume. That's why we are able to equalize this volume less often comparing to the nasal cavity or to the sinus. If you have a sinus block, probably you are not able even to dive in 20-30 centimeters of water. Instead, if you probably already experienced, it's possible to dive up to 1, 2, sometimes even 3 meters and then perform the equalization of the middle ears. That's thanks to the fact that the middle ear is a partially deformable volume, because the eardrum can in and follow the volume that is getting smaller, but just a little bit. Let's analyze now the main airspace connection. What's mean? The connection between the airspace in what I call this hydraulic system that is involved in the equalization. The glottis connects the oral cavity with the lungs. The tongue can divide the oral cavity in front oral cavity and back oral cavity. When the tongue is relaxed, we have one airspace, oral cavity. But when the tongue goes in contact with our palate in different position, can completely divide these two airspaces. This is going to be important later when we are going to talk about the sequential or the mouthfeel equalization techniques. The soft palate divides the oral cavity with the nasal cavity. For us, it's really important the control of the soft palate, because if the soft palate is shut, that means closed, you can have all the pressure and the air that you want in the oral cavity, but this air will not arrive to the upper floor, that means in the nasal cavity, and we are not going to be able to equalize. So it's important while we are descending, every time that we equalize, to have the soft palate constantly open. The Eustachian tubes, they connect the nasal cavity with the middle ears. So this is thanks to the Eustachian tube that you can let the air go through the nasal cavity in the middle ears to balance the pressure volume while we are descending. The epiglottis is not involved in equalization, but only when we swallow. Why I'm talking about these organs in this moment? Because I know that there was some confusion about, and in different didactic they say that the epiglottis is the organs that divide lungs and oral cavity. This is not true. The epiglottis is moving only and is bending, helping the food to glide in the esophagus instead to fall down in the throat during the moment that we swallow. During a dive, when we equalize, the epiglottis is not involved at all. This is one of the two different ways how I represent the equalization system. In this photo, we have from the lowest part the glottis, going up the epiglottis, then the tongue, soft palate, and the Eustachian tubes. I like this picture because it's my face, but I will show you a different way that I like more. This is my hydraulic system for the equalization. We have, starting from the lowest part, lungs and stomach, going up front oral cavity and back oral cavity, going up nasal cavity, sinus, and middle ears. So what is the connection between lungs and back oral cavity? The glottis. Then the oral cavity, as we already say, can be one airspace, or we can have the front oral cavity and the back oral cavity, thanks to the tongue that can be open or closed. From the front oral cavity, we have another valve that are the lips. From the back oral cavity, if we want to have access to the nasal cavity, we will go through the soft palate that can be open, closed, or in some rare situation can be almost closed. From the nasal cavity, we have access to the external part of our body, to the nostril. Then, from the nasal cavity, we go to the sinus without any valve, because it is just a connection that in a normal situation is constantly open. Only if you have cold or too much mucus, sometimes you need to do something active to equalize the sinus. If not, normally we don't realize that we do it, because it's just an open connection. From the nasal cavity, we have access to the middle ears through the Eustachian tubes. If you go back to the lowest part of the graphic, We go from the back oral cavity to the stomach through the upper esophageal sphincter. That is going to be open only in the moment that we swallow. This is the hydraulic system involved in the equalization. For me, it's really important to have this system perfectly clear in your mind every time that you perform any dry skills or when you are in the water, because you need to understand how is moving the air from one airspace to the other one. And sometimes it's possible that you don't go to have the feeling of these organs. But if you analyze this flow chart, you can understand if your soft palate is open or closed. If you're just inhaling through the nose, the air goes through the nose, in the nasal cavity, in the back oral cavity, in the lungs. So even if you don't feel your soft palate is going to be open, your glottis is going to be open. We will see in different situations performing the dry skills how important this flow chart. Now let's talk about one of the most important organs involved in equalization, the Eustachian tubes. The Eustachian tubes is this connection that goes from the nasal cavity to the middle ears. The Eustachian tube is normally closed thanks to two different situations. It's closed because external to the Eustachian tube we have a mass of fat that constantly press on the tube and close the tubes. Plus, the tube are constantly wet from the muco produced in the middle ears. So the surface tension of the mucus for himself keep the tubes closed. The tubes they open when we create pressure in the nasal cavity or thanks to the action of two small muscles connected to the tubes and to the soft palate. The name of these two muscles are the tensor and the elevator of the soft palate. The tubes they can open, as we just say, in two different ways. 100% pressure, that means that only thanks to the increasement of the pressure in the nasal cavity, the air go in the middle ears, opening the tubes. 50% pressure, 50% mechanical. That means that while we create some pressure, usually totally unconsciously, we help contracting the two small muscles to mechanically open the tubes. In this situation, the pressure that we need to equalize is lower of when we create only pressure in the nasal cavity to open the tubes. And then finally, the 100% mechanical. That is what usually we call hands-free equalization, where we don't create any pressure and the tubes they open just thanks to the mechanical effort of the tensor and the elevator of the soft palate. In the last years, we discovered that the person that are able to equalize hands-free, they don't have any anatomical gift, but it's just a control gift. Because under the theory point of view, everybody is able to equalize hands-free. The difference between who can and who cannot is only that the person that they can, somehow they develop the ability on demand to control these muscles and at the same time control soft palate and glottis. But the physiological function of the tubes is to open daily up to 1000 times per day. And if this function doesn't work, we are in a situation of pathology. So if during the normal life you don't have any problem of constant pressure in the ears, you don't get dizzy or you don't have infection of the middle ears, that means that the tubes, they know how to do their job. That is opening and closing during the day. So that means that you too, you're supposed to be able to equalize hands-free one day. Depend only from the amount of training that you will decide to do it to arrive to perform the equalization hands-free. Let's start now talking about Frenzel equalization technique. On this table, we report some information on how to perform the equalization. Name, Frenzel. Tubes opening, pressure mechanical. As we just said just a few minutes ago, it's possible to open the tubes only thanks to the increasement of the pressure in the nasal cavity or to the combination of the mechanical effect of the opening of the tube plus the pressure. Where the pressure takes place in the oral cavity, the glottis during the equalization must be closed. The soft palate must be open. The tongue can be in position T, K or H. The charge can be performed with the reverse packing or with the N. That is the name that I provide to the abdominal contraction that we use to make the air shift to perform Frenzel. Air quantity in the oral cavity in a scale that goes from 0 to 6, where 0 is Valsalva, where we don't store any air because there is a passage direct from the lungs to the oral cavity and nasal cavity, and 6 is the mouse feel, that is the biggest volume of air that you can store in the oral cavity. So on this scale, the value is 1. Let's see how is working Frenzel technique. For didactic reason, I use to teach the abdominal contraction for the air shift technique. Why this decision? Because it's the easiest way to perform this equalization technique, performing the abdominal contraction as air shift and then going to equalize with one of the different locks. Is it true? The limits is close to 30 meters, but we will see in the next videos that if I want to dive deeper, I have different combinations that they can allow me to dive deeper. I can use the abdominal contraction and the advanced, I can use the abdominal contraction and the sequential Frenzel, or maybe one day, depending from the depth where I want to go, I can use the abdominal contraction and the mouse feel. I'm not completely against the reverse packing, but the reverse packing is one air shift technique that if instinctively you start to do it since the beginning and it's working fine, okay, good, keep doing. But if you need to learn, it's one of the most difficult. And if we talk about energy consumption, especially soon that we will start to dive really deep, I believe that it's easier to use abdominal contraction in one of the advanced equalization techniques. Let's go in the topic of Frenzel, how it's working. After the air shift technique that we will see soon, then we have some air stored between the tongue and the hard palates. Then we're gonna pinch the nose with the glottis closed, and then pushing the tongue up backward, we decrease the volume of the air that we have in the oral cavity. The decreasement of volume will create one increasement of pressure. If while we do this, the soft palate is open, the same increasement of pressure that we have in the oral cavity, we will have in the nasal cavity, and this increasement of pressure in the nasal cavity will open the tubes and is going to balance the pressure volume in the middle ears. So Frenzel is performed nose pinched, without push with the abdominals, glottis closed, and the pressure is created only in the oral cavity. Can be performed with the tongue in what we call T position, can be performed with the tongue in K position, and can be performed with the tongue in what we call H position. In other videos, I will explain you better about the difference between T, K, and H, and why the name of these different locks. Now, just let's focus on the performance of the Frenzel equalization with the T. Just for your knowledge, doesn't make any difference on depth if you equalize with the T, with the K, or the H. For some equalization technique, whatever is the lock that you use, the performance and the depth that you can reach with that equalization technique doesn't change. With other equalization technique, like the advanced Frenzel or the last part of the mouse feel, we will use all the locks starting from the T, going to the K, going to the H, with a specific progression. But this is something that we will see in other videos. Let's talk about now the air shift technique. There are two different ways how to explain the air shift technique for Frenzel. One could be, in one certain depth, you pinch the nose and then you do an abdominal contraction while the glottis is almost closed. In the same time, the tongue is locked behind the upper teeth. The soft palate is open, so the air flow from the lungs to the oral cavity to the nasal cavity. And then you close the glottis and relax the belly. Probably you are trying to understand what I just said. Then there is another different way to say the same, that is just pinch the nose and pretend to spell the N sound. When we spell in the normal life, when we talk the N sound, you push with the belly, the glottis is almost closed, the tongue is locked behind the teeth, and the soft palate is open. And probably all of you are able to spell the N, and it's going to be the easiest way to shift the air from the lungs to the oral cavity to perform Frenzel. We will see soon the dry skills about this. Frenzel technique potentially, with N charge plus Frenzel, we can dive up to 25-35 meters. Reverse packing plus Frenzel can be performed up to 80 meters. Some freedivers, using the goggles, using the nose clip, and maybe adding the packing, they've been able to pass also the 100-meter depth. I already told you why don't choose the option reverse packing and Frenzel. Because if you want to dive to that depth, I'm going to suggest you in the next videos how to use the abdominal contraction and advanced equalization techniques, like advanced Frenzel, sequential Frenzel, or Mosley. If you remember the learning protocol, first there is the theory. This is what I just did about the Frenzel. Then we have the dry skills. The dry skills, to develop the Frenzel, we start spelling the T in what I call Valsalva style. That is going to be this. Pushing with the belly, we spell the T sound. Why I call Valsalva style? Because Valsalva is the equalization technique where the pressure is created in the lungs thanks to an abdominal contraction. Then the next skills is going to be the spelling of the T Frenzel style. That is going to be this. I'm again doing the T sound. This time the belly is not moving at all. The glottis is closed, and thanks to the movement of the tongue up backward, I squeeze the air that was stored in the oral cavity, and I create one increasement of pressure. Then I release the tongue lock. The sound get out from the lips. I show you again. Look the movement of the Adam palm while I'm performing these skills. Perfect. As soon as you're going to be able to perform the spelling of the T Frenzel, then we will make a small modification. We're going to repeat the same skills, but pinching the nose and putting the attention to inflate the nose reel. Look. The input to inflate the nose reel probably force yourself to open the soft palate more or less unconsciously. And what's happened? That probably performing the spelling of the T Frenzel with the nose pinched, you felt also the equalization to the middle ears. Because in the moment that you create the pressure in the oral cavity with the soft palate open, then the same pressure is created also in the nasal cavity. And this pressure is enough to open the tubes and feel the equalization in the middle ears. The next step to arrive to the real equalization is going to be performed the spelling T Frenzel without the sound. So just stopping a little bit before to make the sound. That is going to be this. This is the performance of equalization with the tongue in T-lock. For didactic reason, today I will stop talking about only Frenzel in T. It's possible, just for your knowledge, to perform Frenzel also in K and H-lock. Let's learn now how to perform the N charge. That means the air shift technique that we will combine for Frenzel for our dives. I will perform a passive exhale. I will pinch the nose and I will pretend to spell the N sound, like this. To be sure that I'm performing the skills in the proper way, I have 3 questions to ask to myself. Do I feel pressure in the nose during the charge? Yes, that means that I'm charging with the soft palate open. Do I relax the abdominal after the charge? Yes. Do I feel the pressure in the nasal cavity after the charge? Yes. In this way, especially with this last question, I check if I've been able to close the glottis after the charge. Because if you feel the pressure in the nasal cavity during the charge, and then in the moment that you relax the abdominal, you lose the pressure in the nasal cavity, that means that you've been not able to close the glottis. Instead, look again how supposed to be performed the skills in the proper way. After that we are going to be able to perform these skills, we will go to the next, where we are going to combine the end charge and the equalization. So you're going to repeat the skills that you just did before, the end charge, with the same question. Pressure in the nose during the charge? Yes. Abdominal relax after the charge? Yes. Pressure in the nose after the charge? Yes. Plus, another question. Abdominal relaxed during the equalization? Yes. So this is the only way to be sure that you are not cheating and you are not performing Valsalva. So during the equalization, the belly should not move at all. I show you again the skill. Passive exhale. As soon as you're going to be able to perform the skills, we go to the next. On the next skills, we perform again the end charge, then we equalize, and during the equalization, we let some air go out through the nose. In this way, we are going to simulate the volume of the air gets smaller during the equalization. Then we are going to perform another end charge and another equalization, and we keep going until we can. Look how to perform the skill. The same question that you asked to yourself in the previous skills are valid also now. As soon as you're going to be able to perform the dry skills, the learning protocol arrives to the pool skills. We are going to take what I call butt position upside down on the border of the pool. And we start with the same protocol that you just performed in dry. Legs on the border of the pool, body in the water, head out of the water. Then passive exhale, pinch the nose, and then I go down and I reach the butt position. As soon as I arrive in that position, I relax the abdominal. I spend some seconds just to take the position, and then I perform the end charge like I did before dry. And then I come back on surface. As soon as skills is working, then I will go to the next one, where I will go down, I will perform the end charge, and then keeping the nose pinched, I will make 2, 3, 4, 5 equalization in a row. Then I will come back on surface. Next and last skills, we are going to simulate what's happened while we are descending in the sea. So, passive exhale, pinch the nose, we go down in the butt position, then we perform the end charge, close the glottis, relax the belly, and we perform one equalization, we let some bubble go out through the nose. Then again, end charge, close the glottis, relax the belly, one more equalization and more bubble, like this. When you run out of air, you go back in surface. As soon all the pool skills are working, then finally we are ready to go in the sea. In the sea, we are going to perform, before start the dive, one pre-equalization on surface. So we're going to take a full deep breath, then we remove the snorkel, we pinch the nose, and we equalize. Then start descending, if it's possible in free immersion, so pull the line, go down just probably like half meter, then pinch the nose, spell the N, and equalize with a T. Release the nose, pull once more, pinch the nose, and charge, equalize. And you keep going like this, up to you can manage the equalization or you are going to feel comfortable. Then you turn and you go back in surface. Thanks to this protocol of skills, starting from dry to the pool and the sea, you're going to be able to put in practice the Frenzel equalization technique combined with the abdominal contraction. I hope that you enjoyed it and have fun in the sea, and remember, always dive with a buddy. See you for the next videos.